The foundation and the bedrock of what I have right now started with nursing. And this is also something that I would like people to know about nursing, that nursing is not synonymous to one role, bedside. Whatever you want to be, as long as you have that foundation as a nurse, you can actually do it. We had people making judgment for nurses in the healthcare industry, and they were not nurses. You've never walked in my shoes before. How do you make decisions for me to thrive when you don't know what it entails? That was a no-no for me. So I said I was going to change this narrative from my own little side that I could do.
When you picked nursing, when you decided, okay, I'm going to stick with it now, did you get any sort of pushback from family?
Family was not a pushback because they knew what I was going into. And we had an uncle in the family who was a nurse. So that was not bad. But I would say the environment was not that friendly with that, saying there was a stereotype associated with male nurses. The best thing that has happened to me in terms of my career is actually studying nursing.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to the Nurse on Purpose podcast, where we challenge media stereotypes about nursing and spotlight the incredible and diverse roles nurses play in healthcare. I'm your host, Nello. Every week, I'll be joined by a nurse who is reshaping the narrative. From frontline care to leadership, education, innovation, and beyond. Our aim is to show the world that nursing is so much more than what we see on TV. Together, we'll explore how we can collaborate with media and other stakeholders to create authentic and inspiring portrayals of nurses. Let's begin the conversation and ignite change, one episode at a time.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Nurse on Purpose podcast, where we challenge media stereotypes about nursing and highlight the incredible work that nurses do every day. I'm excited to be bringing my guest on the show today, Chinonso Paul Okonweze. Let's get the full name correct.
That's good.
As we're representing the Nigerian and male nurses. I am excited to bring you on today because I've often talked about my journey and how being an African immigrant, there is this idea that you need to either be a physician, lawyer, engineer, and I'm a female. So for a man, I can't imagine how much worse that sort of stereotype and that bias is for you. So I just want to hear your story. I want to hear sort of what led you into nursing, and currently you're a project manager, you've gotten your MBA, and you're doing incredible things all over the place. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. First of all, I'll have to first say thank you for inviting me to the show, and thank you for helping to change the misconception that nurses have. I think that was a tick for me to say I need to be part of this show. It's a movement, so thank you.
I do
for making
appreciate
me being part of this movement that you have.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so what inspired you to pursue a career in nursing? Let's begin with that.
I'll be truthful with this question. It might not be what you're expecting, but I didn't choose nursing as my profession. Okay. So as a male nurse or a male who wanted to pursue nursing, it was more in medicine. I want to be a doctor. And I remember back then we didn't have a medical school where I studied. We only had nursing.
Okay.
And the idea was...
And where was that you studied? I'm sorry.
Babcock University.
Oh, Babcock. Okay. So Nigeria.
Yeah, in Lagos, Nigeria, yes.
Lagos, okay.
Well, no, it wasn't Lagos, sorry. Ilishan. It's Ogun State, sorry.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, I don't think Babcock is
it's not in Lagos. It's Ogun State, yeah. So at that time, we had nursing. There was no medicine, but they had a plan to start medicine later on. So the idea was start nursing, and after your second year, you can, migrate to medicine. And that was the idea. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I started. 100 level was okay. It was basic things. Then second year, I started seeing we started a bit of clinicals. And I realized at that time that the purpose of what I wanted was more on the impact side of it. And the impact that I was seeing was more on the nursing side than, being a doctor. So I remember I told myself then, I'm like, I think I like nursing actually. It was actually, more defining for me, and it was something I wanted to be. So I said, okay, I'm going to stick with nursing. So yeah, that's how I decided to choose my career in nursing, by the way. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, not everyone's story is conventional. Mine wasn't. I didn't want to be a nurse either. I was going to be an accountant. So very different, and everyone kind of has their own way that they came into nursing, whether it was a
yeah.
mistake that you ended up, choosing as a life
True,
path,
true.
or if you've
Yeah.
always wanted to be a nurse. Okay, so when you picked nursing, when you decided, okay, I'm going to stick with it now, this is it. How did you get any sort of pushback from family? How was that
Well,
decision met?
I would say family was not a pushback because they knew what I was going into, and we had an uncle in the family who was a nurse, so that was not bad. But I would say the environment was not that friendly with that. Saying there was a stereotype associated with male nurses. So there's some that you anticipated already, but there's some that you did not expect it to happen. So for example, I'll give an example. When you meet someone and they ask you, what do you do? And I say, I'm a nurse. It's always a showstopper. Like in an environment, if like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a nurse. Like everyone stops like, really? You're a nurse? I'm like, yes, I'm a nurse. So that was a showstopper for people.
Yeah, because not only are you a guy, you're like a black, big,
Exactly.
bearded guy.
Exactly. And don't get me started on the beards. The beards was another thing, also in nursing, you don't have to, you need to scrape the old beards,
Mm,
before you the profession. Well, that's a different story anyways. But one of the things in the hospital, for example, you meet patients who call you doctor, for example, right?
hmm.
And I'm like, no, I'm not a doctor. And they ask, I'm like, I'm a nurse. And they're like, but you're a male. I'm like, yes,
That's a
I'm a
Nigeria,
male.
right? This was in
Yes, that's in
Nigeria. Okay,
Nigeria. That's
okay,
in
sorry,
Nigeria. And
just
I'm
to
like, yes, I'm
clarify.
a male. That misconception was there for the profession to be associated to a feminine role. Again, being Nigerian, being black, being, who I am, it's more to work harder to show
Mm,
why a nurse should be
yeah,
me,
yeah.
So if other female nurses were doing this, you had to do extra to show that,
Mm,
I could actually
you
do this.
deserved. Yeah.
So exactly. So yeah, this is good.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like a reverse gender
Absolutely.
stereotype.
Absolutely.
Usually,
Absolutely.
females are the ones who are trying their
Doing the
best,
extra.
right? Go the extra mile and prove that they can just as strong
Yeah.
as their
Yeah.
male counterparts. And in your situation, you had the reverse. So I
Hmm.
guess it's a universal thing. Okay, so currently you are a project manager. You've got your MBA. How did you transition? Did you start off bedside and then transition to
Mm.
the more corporate world?
Okay. What I would first start with is I cannot start talking about what I am now without first giving credit to my nursing background. Okay. I would say the foundation and the bedrock of what I have right now started with nursing. Okay. And this is also something that I would like people to know about nursing, that nursing is not synonymous to one role, bedside. It's something that you can transition into different, in short, whatever you want to be, as long as you have that foundation as a nurse, you can actually do it. I said as this bedside nurse for a while, but I always knew, by the way, that I was going to move out of nursing for a while. And the reason was because I felt that the way we were perceived was not what I wanted us to be seen as. I saw us as pawns on a chessboard, you know. And I said to myself, I need to be an officer. I need to be in front to make a change in nursing. Okay. So I served as a pawn for a while, move left, move straight, straight, straight. I kept moving that way. Uh, but I said I wanted to be a decision maker in the healthcare industry. I wanted to be able to make a change. And how can I make a change is to do more for myself. So it's either I decide to stay in the clinic or I do my DNP, do other things in nursing. So I shifted from nursing to the administrative side of it. My first role was all in healthcare insurance. Then as I had seen things, and one of my key strengths is finding solutions to a problem. Okay, which a nurse is part of our superpower, by the way. That's
Really,
what we
like,
see. Yeah.
exactly.
So,
We
so
always see a problems to be fixed.
exactly. We all exactly. So the point was I took those skills I learned in nursing and I transitioned it into other things. Okay.
Wonderful.
I went into project management, which I do love, by the way. And I feel that a nurse is a project manager already, you know,
Yeah.
but with the additional skills you have on that, you become a superior, better project manager. Then, of course, I decided to do my MBA in business, in healthcare, by the way,
Hmm.
healthcare business, because I wanted to be more in the leadership role, policies, and in healthcare, and to make people see that nurses are not just behind. We can actually be on that table to make decisions. Okay. No shade to any profession in the healthcare industry, but we had people making judgment for nurses in the healthcare industry,
Mm.
and they were not nurses.
Oh, goodness.
You've never walked in my shoes before. How do you make decisions for me to thrive when you don't know what it entails? So that was a no for me. So I said I was going to change this narrative from my own little side that I could do. And I did that. Currently, I'm actually, also doing my doctorate also in business, also to do that. And this is also something that, at the end of it, you want to get there, you want to move, you want to keep learning, because as a nurse, I think one of our super strengths is we need to keep learning. We need to keep asking questions. We need to know what next for us to do rather than just be stagnant in one place. So, yeah. So that's it. I hope I've answered that question.
Oh, you have answered it perfectly well. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's really inspiring to see that you are committed to growth, committed to learning and just building, right? And you're doing that from that background of nursing and for the purpose of advancing both yourself and the profession, shining that spotlight. And I think that this is what we're all about. Like you said, we're problem solvers and we tackle challenges head on. And it's important for nurses to be in the front of making decisions that impact our profession, without having to be told about it. No, we are at the table and we're part of the team of people who are forming those decisions. So that's really inspiring. And congrats on pursuing your PhD, Dr. Paul.
Well,
Dr.
we're,
Paul in
we're
the
gonna
making.
we're gonna wait till that time. But yeah, it's something I look forward to. Yeah. And just to touch on that, people always ask questions, and I think this was one of the things that I was going to talk to you about, was when someone finishes the PhD or the doctorate or the DMP, and we decide to use the titles. I have friends who are like, this is what they call me now. We go outside, we call them like Dr. P, Dr. this, whatever. And the question people asked me then was, oh, if you finish, do you want people to call you doctor, or you want to still stick with Paul? And my response to them was this: it's a title that was given, but it is deserved because you worked and earned it. Okay. Now, in professional setting, because it's been earned, it's something that you deserve to be called. Okay. Now, outside the profession, does not mean you have to, stick with that. But within a professional setting, if it's been earned, it works, because you realize that lots of people now, it's another stereotype again, with, if you're not a doctor, you're not this, and nurses feeling that they're misconception that they're inferior to the doctors in terms of, because they're not doctors. But now I see the transition in nursing. We have doctors in nursing now. I think you yourself also doing great in nursing, by the way. So you're a testament to that. So I like the new ways that nurses are like seeing things. So it's great. It's great. Yeah.
And
That's
now,
great.
I do appreciate that you talked about those misconceptions about men in
Hmm.
nursing, going to the hospital and people calling you doctor versus nurse, and that happens in the reverse. People will call female doctors nurse
Nurses, that's true.
instead of doctor. And I think it's an honest mistake. You're not gonna, patients they don't know who you are, especially if everyone's dressed in scrubs. It's
Sure.
just the way that our minds have been programmed. And I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with it, as
Hmm.
long as,
Hmm.
of course, it's an honest mistake. But what do you think that nursing as a profession, right, can do to sort of encourage more men to enter into the profession?
Okay, that's a good question. Thinking about it, I think that it's more awareness. I would say there should be more awareness for how a male is being integrated into the profession. And this would go against different, cultural biases to say that, a male can actually do this. And because of the conception of what nurses are seen as, if, for example, we feel that a nurse should actually be the one to like do, that bedside, and men should not care, or we should not show up the emotional side of ourselves to patients, or we're not loving enough to to actually show that care, so it's more a feminine touch. Okay, I've had patients who decline my care just because they want a female to
Yeah,
actually attend to them.
yeah.
We don't have the magic fingers.
Well, I mean, historically, I guess, that's
Yeah,
been the case.
yeah.
So female
So
dominated.
I think that if this would encourage more male nurses to actually come in, it's going to be more on the awareness of it, making people
Mhm.
see that nursing, first of all, is not construed to a particular
Kind of type
task,
of care. Yeah, it's
a
not only
particular
task
task. It's not
oriented. Yeah,
exactly.
there's
It's not like you have
scientific.
to
Yeah.
be exactly. Now we have nurse informatics. We have people with tech and nursing. We have so many things. So being a nurse is not about just having to shower for the person or having to change the bedpan or things like that. Which people see that it removes the masculinity of a man when you do such things. Okay, but of course, it's not about that for nursing. So if that changes, I think men will begin to say, "Oh, this is a profession I can actually go into, and it's
Mm.
not going to change me being a man."
Yeah.
So that needs to change. It's the orientation and awareness in different places for
Yeah.
the
And I think,
environment.
just having better representation too in media, and in the public, that when there are all these shows, medical dramas, that we're showing that all the nurse characters don't have to be female, right? We can
Oh,
have we can have male characters there, and people are largely influenced by what they see. So if you're watching a show, for instance, that is widely popular, for instance, Grey's Anatomy, and you see that there's a strong character on there, and he's a man and he's a nurse, that sort of shifts your mindset a little bit too. So I think public perception also has a role to play in, or representation also has a role to play in the diversification of nursing.
I love Grey's Anatomy. We all watch Grey's Anatomy.
Everyone.
We all read Ben Carson's books and things like that. But we don't have a show or drama that depicts a nursing environment and
Mm,
shows the strength of what nurses actually do.
yeah.
If it's a medical drama, it has to be doctors running the show.
Yes. Yes.
On the
Yes.
back end, we don't see what the nurses do.
Yeah.
So again, if we need to change that perception, we need to, shine light more on the nurses, which
Yeah.
is mixed profession, male and female,
Yeah.
and let people see that they're not just bedside.
Hmm.
They do more than bedside. I
Yeah.
think this would actually, help with the
Yeah.
misconception people have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I think my platform really wants to address. There's a show out now called The Pit. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's on HBO Max in the United States. Oh, by the way, guys, Paul is in the UK. That's where we're streaming from. But the show is called The Pit, and there is a male nurse there.
Oh, nice.
Again, of course, the show is very heavily centered around physicians,
Exactly.
medical
Right. Right.
students,
Yeah.
residents, and
Yeah.
all of that. But I think that they're doing a better job of representing what nurses do, having diversity in their cast. You know, the nurse is Filipino. Then there's also a male nurse, and yeah, there's a different sort of vibe. And they do try to give nurses their credit to say, hey, the nurses know what they're doing or whatever. But again, that all of that praise is coming from the physicians, right?
Mm.
So in a way, it does it feel kind of patronizing, maybe. But I think that they're doing they're doing what they
It's
think
starting.
is, yeah, it's a good starting point. Exactly. You know, it's definitely a break away from the completely voiceless nurse. And then the doctors are running the code, the doctors are pushing the gurney, that they're doing everything. They're even holding the hands. And so
Right.
that's a
Right.
false
Exactly.
representation. It's like, so
Exactly.
where are the nurses? So yeah, that's definitely a false picture of what we
Hmm.
know happens in the ED
Absolutely.
and other, clinical settings. So, but I'm glad that you talked about the media portrayal. Besides Grey's Anatomy, is there any show that you watch that have any
Well,
opinions about?
I've seen a lot of medical drama, but I would say during my school time, and I think what motivated me to be part of the medical team was Grey's Anatomy, and the Gifted Hands Ben Carson book. Other dramas for me, Night Shift. There was a Night Shift drama, which was also medical drama, but again, like you've said. And I think, other people also listening to this, nurses and, leaders in nursing should begin to look at, what can we do to begin to have our own drama. Nothing stops us to have our own drama to actually show that, I remember one of my first, I think that was my third year or fourth year, we had a paper that we wrote. And I remember then the paper I wrote was about mentorship in nursing. And my idea at the time was, to actually showcase mentors, people who are actually doing great things in nursing, not just the female side of it, even the male side of it. Because with males, again, if you don't see people who have walked the path, it's difficult for you to want to do what they're doing. But if you see male that they've done it and their masculinity is still intact,
Still intact.
and
No,
they
that's important. Yeah.
and they're doing what they should do, you would want to be like them. But it's an abstract idea for me to say I want to be a male nurse when I don't really see male nurses out there. So I think male nurses need to also begin to speak up, and let people see that we're here. This is what we're doing. We're actually doing great for ourselves too. And then other male would be like, I want to be like that guy. He's a nurse, he's male, and he's doing well. So why not?
And it
So
doesn't diminish your strength. It doesn't
it
diminish
doesn't.
your
It doesn't.
masculinity. It doesn't
It
take away
doesn't.
from who you are as a
Absolutely.
person. So, speaking of
Absolutely.
mentorship, have you had any mentors or role models that helped to
Oh
guide your
yeah.
career?
Yes.
Oh, you're
Yes.
shaking your head.
Yes, because I would say that I don't think that it's like I said, it's an abstract thinking to be something when you don't have a vision of that thing. Okay. Um Being a nurse was good for me. I had people around, all nurses, and back in Nigeria, there's a cadre of growth of nurses, right? Which I admired as a person, but it took a while to get to that stage. And I had to look at people like, okay, this person is, how long will it take me to get to the stage? But I did not understand then what mentorship was. I had people I was talking to,
Mm,
but so my first mentor was a clinical mentor who helped me, clinically, encouraged me not to be shy, to be outspoken, to learn more, and that helped my clinical career.
yeah.
But when I finished nursing and I moved into the admin side of it, I realized at the time that my degree was only nursing, so it was difficult for me to actually go out there and be like, I had the know-how, but I had nothing to back up what I was doing in terms of the knowledge and expertise. Okay, but I was just using my transferable skills from nursing to do that. So on a day, we had a meeting with a very high level player in the market. And this guy just kept talking. And while he was talking, everyone was listening to him. I had to listen because I'm like, this guy just sounds so intelligent. And
Captivating.
after the old
Mhm.
meeting, I went to meet him like, I like the way you spoke about the meeting. What's your background? And he was like, I used to be a nurse. My background was in nursing. And that took me, I was stunned. And I said, can we meet up,
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
coffee or something? Because
Yeah.
I want to know more. So I told him, like, I also studied nursing, so then we met up and he told me how we progressed, what he did,
Mhm.
and it was like, you need to go. So he advised me, first of all, to go do my MBA, by the way.
Mhm.
He said,
Mhm.
you need to go do your MBA. You really sound at this, but I think if you do your MBA, it's going to make a big difference for you. So I went back home. I started learning, found some schools, went to meet them. Like, I found some schools. What do you think about the schools? So mentors, I think they guide you. It
Mhm.
did that. So I have different mentors in different times
Right.
because I think different people come in different times for you.
Absolutely. Yep.
So my journey has been based on mentorship.
Mhm.
I would say my wife is also a mentor, by the way, because she
Awesome.
she also helped me
Love that.
in my own way too. So you have people who mentor you in different stages of your life and
Yeah.
how you progress.
Yeah.
So I don't joke with mentors. Yes, I feel
Yes.
it's a necessity
Yeah.
that one should have. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Such a good thought. This was inadvertent. It just happened, right? It wasn't like you were seeking him out. You were struck by
Hmm.
something that he did at
Yeah,
his
yeah,
presentation.
yeah.
I think that when picking mentors, it's important to pick somebody who is where you aspire to be, and
Absolutely.
they can sort of hold your hand and show you the ropes and help you avoid making mistakes that they already made, so you don't have to. So yeah, I've had mentors in my own life who, some of them are distant, some of them are close, some
Hmm.
don't even know they're my mentors. So I just follow them and I just look
Look,
at what they're doing. They're my silent mentors. I'm like their stalker. But just reading their story, has really helped me to grow and to make sort of better choices that have contributed to speed in my life.
mm.
So, very important. What are some of your hopes? What are some of your goals moving into this new season of your life where you're getting a PhD? What are some things that you're currently working on and some things that you hope to be doing in the near future?
First of all, I'll start with what drives me. Okay, and that drive has always been to make an impact in healthcare. If I look at my background and where it came from, and this is Nigeria, and I see how the healthcare system has been for a long time, and having the knowledge that we have now, and we're still getting, to be able to make change in the healthcare system and to be able to change that care that people can have. So my blend now is more with tech and,
Mhm.
the clinical side of it, and seeing how tech can help blend with the delivery of care to people, especially in undeserved area and even places where they feel that they already have the right care. How can
Mhm.
it be improved?
Mhm.
So I would say my project and what I'm looking to do is more on that impact in the healthcare delivery, merging the clinical and tech together, taking that healthcare to the next level.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And I think that will be especially important in our native country, Nigeria, other parts of Africa, where there's still such a lack of accessible care. And like
Right.
you said, to the areas that have been so long underserved, merging what is now here, AI, healthcare, creating solutions to
Hmm.
problems that have existed for a long time, that are easily solvable, right? And nurses can, we see these problems on a day to day basis
Right.
in our own settings, in our own practice. So we have the frontline view, and with that comes the ability to innovate that comes the ability to solve the problem firsthand because
Absolutely.
we know
Yeah.
exactly what's going on. We're the boots on the ground. So I think it's a great time for nurses to take advantage of the current technology,
Yeah.
especially those who are heavy into tech, like yourself. You know, you're into the project management, you're into tech. It's using what we have, a nursing background, using the technology and trying to create solutions to problems that we see all around us. So that's an amazing vision. And I'm hoping for your continued success.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so we are going to sort of come to at the end of our session now, but we still have to play our game because, you know, we can't leave without playing the game. So here we go. I have my jar and I'm going to pick your category. And you already know what to do. You turn into a screenwriter. You come up with a script for your own show. This is Paul's show. Whatever you want to see a nurse look like on screen, it can have a nurse character or a nurse lead. And I'll pick your category from the jar. And then you can go ahead and tell me that plot line. Are you ready?
Okay. All right. Let's
Do
go.
this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. No peeking here. Okay. Oh, this is different. Your category is fantasy.
Okay.
I hope you're into sci-fi and
Interesting. Okay. So I think the title of this should be The Guardian of Ealing.
oh,
Okay.
hey.
Yeah. And that would be a plot twist of, I know we've been talking about Grey's Anatomy and stuff like that. So I'm going to put this related to something like that. The plot twist would be, that we're having this disease going around. We're having all this misconception in nursing. We're having so many things. People with a feeling that is not right in healthcare. And we have, for example, chosen heroes that they've been chosen and they're the guardians that would help to solve this problem. However, each of them, so they all have superpowers, by the way, and their superpowers would come in different things. One of them is empathy, for example. They can be able to understand and sense what's
Wow.
going on with the person because they're
Wow.
intuitive. Okay, we have someone with the healing power, like a
Mm,
healer, who can actually talk to the patient and just by laying hands on them and things like that they can get healing powers
okay,
from them. we
deliverance.
have we have visionaries, for example, and the visionaries are people that can see the future. For example, they can know how to predict that this disease is going to come. We have people who are innovators also, using tech
Yeah,
to make transformation in
yeah,
healthcare, and
yeah.
they all come together to solve what's going on. So every place that there's a problem in healthcare, that team goes there and they all ensure that it's been solved with their superpowers. That would be a good movie to write.
Wow. I have to give it up to you. I was not expecting that. Oh my goodness. So we have nurse superheroes. This is like what's the name of that group where we used to watch as kids? They had like different colors. Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, exactly.
They're like Power
It's a Power
Rangers
Rangers
or the
nurses.
Marvel superheroes. That's so
Right,
cool.
right,
I love
right,
that.
right,
I
right.
love that. The nursing superheroes, the guardians of what? Elon?
Of healing.
Of healing. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. That's an amazing show. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Guys, what do you think? I think that would be a worthy watch. So
They
I
should
am
put it on
so
Netflix.
glad. Yeah, I know, right? Listen, if they pick up that show on Netflix, I'm definitely letting you know and I'm going to send you a cut. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. It's been such a
It's
pleasure,
awesome.
to talk to you. I think that it's great to talk with nurses who share the same sort of passion, the same vision for elevating our profession and really amplifying our voices. And nursing leading, nurses innovating, nurses creating their own narratives So that really has been inspiring for me today. Can you tell people where they can find you if they wanted to connect?
I think right now it's just LinkedIn.
Yeah. He's
I'm
so
just
good
on
on
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I love following your posts.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and there I talk about, mostly I talk about digital healthcare and how technology, merges with clinical expertise and how you can solve problems with that. So, um, if anyone wants to follow me, it's LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, same name, Chinonso Paul Okonweze.
Yes, I'll have his links in the show notes, guys, so you can follow him. And one last question: is there anyone that you think would make a good guest for the show?
Well, I would say I have so many people, so I don't know if you're gonna say one person, but I think there are a lot of people that I feel that right now they're making a lot of impact.
Hmm.
And to be fair with you, this on a side note, I feel that nursing 10 years ago is not nursing now.
Mm,
I feel that the new generation of nurses are people I actually really admire.
mm.
I know they call them the Gen Z people, but what I've learned from them and what I'm still learning from them is how outspoken they are.
Mm,
How they search for knowledge. They have
mhm,
that search,
mm,
thirst,
mm,
hunger,
mhm,
for knowledge to say what next.
mhm.
Unlike when we were practicing, we were more, laid back on
Yeah,
just doing what we should
accepted
do.
whatever. Hmm.
Exactly. And I've seen lots of them. I follow some of them on LinkedIn also, looking at that barrier with what I missed from my
Mm,
side, because I'm learning, unlearn to relearn,
yeah.
the new way that we're looking at healthcare. So I had people, but the Gen Z and you
the
know my
new, the
my
new
my my my
generation.
my, co- my colleagues also that I
Yeah.
feel that would be a great addition to this, and they can also put a voice on their
Hmm.
own side on what they've experienced too.
Hmm.
So I can send you a list of recommendation, or
Okay,
if you want
sure.
me
I'll
to,
take
I,
it.
I can send you a list of recommendation from my
Yeah,
side,
absolutely.
that I
I
feel would
think
be
that,
great for you for this. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that. I think
Thank
that,
you. Really.
it's an amazing thing to connect with your connections, because if I have a connection with you and I feel that I think that the likelihood of having that connection with your contact will most likely be high as well. And you know what? I do want to ask one last question, even though I said the previous question was my last
All
question.
right. Go ahead.
But can you, if you were to give advice to a male guy who is thinking of entering the nursing profession and is apprehensive, not sure what to expect, not sure how, the gender disparity may affect his practice or even his experience, what would you say to that guy?
Okay, first thing I would first say before is that the best thing that has happened to me in terms of my career is actually studying nursing.
Oh, wow.
That's the fact. So you should know that. Then the second thing is that nursing is not a gender role.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that nursing supersedes being streamlined to one task,
Mm-hmm.
and to let the person know that being a male actually has an advantage. So what I've done is I've flipped it, okay, to
Mm-hmm.
say that I'm going to use the male side of it to make an advantage of what nursing can actually be.
Yeah.
And it's better to be that minority to show an impact than being
Mm.
the majority to show the
Mm.
impact. So
Yeah.
he should decide on what he wants to do for
Yeah.
himself. But
Yeah.
that's my narrative to the person if he wants to pursue
Absolutely.
nursing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That's extremely helpful. Thank you again for stopping by on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you. Guys, please give it up to my guests. And I hope you have gained something valuable from this episode. And I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks for hanging with me till the end. I hope you gained some valuable insight into the world of nursing. If today's episode inspired you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear about the amazing work nurses are doing. Let's keep breaking stereotypes and reshaping the narrative together. I'll see you next time.